all is vanity. Happy is he who has never been born, wrote Tolstoy. In my darkest of hours, having reached the ultimate logical conclusion of nihilism, uttering words that were renouncing life, not unlike those of this quote, it was Leo Tolstoy's novella The Death of Ivan Ilyich that sparked unlikely hope. A human is a strange creature. Knowing of others, if not greater than at least equivalent suffering, brought peace to me, and my alienation started to crumble. I understood Ivan Ilyich. I too felt the temptation of indulging in earthly superficialities, career, status, salary, cards. But beyond Ivan, in between the lines of fiction, I felt I understood Tolstoy himself. Surely this was another person who could not help seeing through the illusion of meaning. Suffice it to say, the similarity of Tolstoy's hopelessness shined forth to me through this novella, but it was a bit later on that I discovered his Confessions, in which he openly professed his despair in a manner that propelled me out of my self-centered pity and finally fully opened my eyes. I was not alone. An odd relief, sure, but far too long have I naively felt like the only sane person in the world. It was this brilliant and desperate passage that was the nail in the coffin of my existential isolation, which I will try to quote at length here. I will look down a bit and try to read it because I've tried to recite it 10 times from memory, but I keep blanking out in the middle. So, quote, involuntarily, it appeared to me that there, somewhere, was someone who amused himself by watching how I lived and matured for 30 and 40 years, learning, developing, maturing in body and mind, and how, having with matured mental powers reached the summit of life from which it all lay before me, I stood on that summit like an arch fool, seeing clearly that there is nothing in life, and there will be and has been nothing. And he was amused. But whether that someone laughing at me existed or not, I was none the better off. I could give no reasonable meaning to any single action or to my whole life. I was only surprised that I could have avoided this from the very beginning. It has been so long known to all. Today or tomorrow sickness and death will come. They had come already to those I love or to me. Nothing will remain but stench and worms. There is nothing either amusing or witty about it. It is simply cruel and stupid. End quote. A lot of time has passed since. Turns out, existential dread, whether masked by nihilism or not, is a curious thing. It is common to us all, yet individual to the core. Like with death, we're all headed for it, yet each of us will finally have to face it alone. No one will keep you company on your final journey to the other side. We do not like to think about our dread, worst yet talk of it, and the insistence on not saying Voldemort's name in the Harry Potter series is a beautiful portrayal of this. Rest assured, you will not make many friends speaking of your existential dread outside of dead poets in old books. One simply does not verbalize the inevitable. Otherwise, one risks being completely misunderstood, for rarely can anyone gracefully and accurately put into words something so utterly personal and terrifying at the same time. Our greatest superpower and savior, conscious rationality, shrinks in screeching retreat when entering these waters, and Tolstoy's quote is a brilliant example of this. Looking back on myself, my nihilism went hand in hand with the growing powers of my rational knowledge. With my youthful arrogance and pride, armed with Nietzsche in hand, I was ready to demolish whatever meaning dared step into my path. Reasonable truth, whatever that means, was my only pursuit. I was going to get to the bottom of things with the shovel of my intellect. Well, turns out, it's just the bottom there. I say all this not to discourage or sound like I found the whole truth of the world. No, each of us should look for the boundaries themselves, whether down like I did, or up, or sideways, or whatever. Maybe as the cliche goes, it is not really about the answers, but the journey there. But I think what truly matters most is to not shy away from it. The journey continues, depending on your conclusions, through or despite nihilism. But there is no shying away from it or evading it. At least not if you want to get anywhere. I believe nihilism, or in a broader sense despair, is a crucial part of maturing, not in your body or mind as Tolstoy said, but in your soul. Rationality is a powerful part of being human, and the growing of powers cannot help but be turbulent. But we should not forget that it is a part. The problem is that it's inherently creative and destructive at the same time. That is what makes it such a dangerous tool. And it is not in vain that rationality is embodied as the devil in Christianity. It is only after that the dogmatists twist this wisdom in their own fearful confusion. Left unchecked, our intellect is capable of destroying anything, and Tolstoy verbalized this one-sided battle most notably. To think of yourself as simply a rational being or to view existence through only a rational lens, I believe is fundamentally misguided. Being as a whole, or whatever level you wish to analyze it at, is made of dualistic fabric and relies on balance. Otherwise, I think you risk a split and therefore an explosion. Our sickness unto death is the inability to embrace and to affirm the totality of existence. It is like our innate mammalian wish to cling on. My journey thus far has led me to believe that instead of identifying with a part, a role, a side, or denying identification in general, one should identify with the process itself. What I mean is, identify with the one who sees rather than the one being seen. Realize that you're a sort of apparatus through which chaos is turned into order, a being that existence itself filters through. Consciousness is a problem. It makes us aware of our mortality and lures us to despair. But the paradox is that the process of consciousness is precisely what makes us immortal. We, as a body of consciousness, are the prerequisite for existence itself. I like to think that it is not we who exist, but rather it is we who enable existence to exist, if that makes sense. For if there was no light of consciousness to shine, would there be anything at all? As Jung wrote, as far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. We are what divides the world. We are the perspective. Without us, there is no good and evil, no light or dark, no masculine or feminine. We embody the force that divided the world. Humanity is the gap, the border between yin and yang. And I will read this next part because I want to get it just right. Without consciousness, there just is not. Only the ultimate chaos out of which everything emerged as portrayed in creation myths. In other words, what exists is nothing at all but an indiscernible totality of possibility and potential, or simply chaos. In this light, it becomes redundant to try and cling on to one side or to try to let go of them entirely, because by doing either, sides cease to exist. The process that creates being halts and you fall into the abyss of nothingness. And arriving at this idea is how I escaped my nihilism. To end, if anyone out there is feeling solitude with their existential dread, I wish to exclaim through the screen, if it is the only thing I do here, you are not alone. We may be hopeless and ill with nihilism, we may be mortal and fragile, we may be having a cruel joke played on us, as Tolstoy wrote, but I will be damned if we give way to entropy and do not stand tall in the face of existence. One foot in order, the other in chaos, until death provide me relief. And if that wasn't enough, I will end with a quote that I think encapsulates all that ever needed to be said. We may be dying, but we are not dead yet. Happy existing.